the most legendary matchup, not NFL history, but certainly in these playoffs thus far, certainly maybe of this year, and that is the I Am Legend game. That's right. 43 versus 42. Happy early birthday to Drew Brees. He'll turn 42 on Friday. What a nice birthday gift it would be to beat Tom Brady in the NFC Championship. And thanks to Brees turning 42 on Friday, the combined starting age is going to be 85. New NFL record. Of course, they beat their own record. They were 84 earlier this year. The playoff record was 78. So you're seeing something that you've quite literally never witnessed before. The all-time passing yardage leader versus the all-time passing touchdown leader. Drew Brees is thrown for 80,358 yards. Tom Brady is thrown for 79,304 yards. Both players have thrown for at least 7,000 more yards than the next closest player. So you're talking about these two guys outperforming the next greatest quarterback by about the equivalent of two great seasons, right? 3,500 yards a pop. Brady has thrown 581 touchdowns. Brees has thrown 571. The injury this year ends up costing Brees any shot at the touchdown title. What else this is, it's the first time that we're ever getting Brady versus Brees in the playoffs. Boys, don't look now, but do you realize what Drew Brees' record is against Tom Brady in his career with the 2 wins this year? It's up to 5-2. How about it, Drew Brees? Pretty nice. You know, Tom's going to be fired up for that. Interestingly enough, this is actually the second time that you've had two players that are 1-2 in career passing yards meet up in the playoffs. The first time, John Elway, Dan Marino, 1998. Unfortunately, that matchup did not live up to the billing as the Broncos took care of business 38-3. Here's to hoping that this one will. And look, as great as Drew Brees is statistically, and as much as I love him and I will defend him till my dying day, when you are talking about playoff Tom, you are talking about something different. It's, you know, I keep going back to that Instagram post. I am the storm. That is Tom Brady in the playoffs. Do you realize how many wins he has now in the postseason? Tom Brady has 31 postseason wins. 31, fellas. This win would get him at 32. Do you know who's second on that list? Joe Montana. Do you know how many he has? 16. So he has nearly doubled the next winningest playoff quarterback in NFL history. He has thrown 75 touchdowns. Joe Montana, second on the list. You know what he's thrown? 40. Okay? So make no mistake, you are dealing with the greatest playoff quarterback of all time. And you're also dealing with, for all the similarities in age and dominance level and statistics, you're dealing with two players that in this year have actually got it done in completely different ways. How about this? Tom may be old, but in the Bruce Arians system, they're still taking shots. No player in football this season has thrown the ball 20 yards downfield more than Tom Brady. On the flip side, Drew Brees is quite literally last in the league, 32nd in that same metric. However, Brees, efficient till he dies. He has 5 touchdowns, 0 picks on such throws, whereas Brady's been picked off 12 times on such throws, including a few times against the New Orleans Saints this season. Again, as we mentioned earlier, stop being scared of the third matchup. The math is actually on your side. I know Jordy had maybe a slightly different number, but what I read is that this is the 23rd time it is happening, and that the 2-0 team is 14-8. As Jordy said, in the last 25 years, they're 9-3. So again, you have a very good chance of winning this game. But what's really fascinating about these two quarterbacks and what you really need to appreciate come Sunday is to stand the test of time in the way that they have and to accumulate these absurd numbers and these absurd stats. It goes far beyond simply keeping your body healthy, right? When you look at what football has happened, or when you look at how football has evolved over the last 10 years, it's a game that looks almost unrecognizable from 2011, right? I mean, just think about college football in 2011. It was all running games and defense, and Alabama and LSU were holding teams to like 9 points a game, 10 points a game, under 300 yards a game, numbers that you could not imagine nowadays. So not only are Brady and Brees having to keep their body healthy, having to stand the test of time physically, but mentally as well, they have managed to stay not just relevant, but to stay on top of the most hyper-evolved decade of football that we have ever seen in our lives, ever seen in NFL history. I think there's an article from The Ringer that had an analogy that I absolutely fell in love with. 2011 is the BC AD split in how we view football. It's a line of demarcation between old school and what we now know as the school. When you're talking about Brees and Brady, I love this idea that The Ringer lays out that they're like these World War I soldiers, right? They arrived on horseback, they left riding in tanks. I mean, that's something that you don't always appreciate about World War I is, and why it's such a brutal war, such a depressing war, is that you had all these old war notions of like chivalry and lining up and fighting and these old school strategic notions, but you combine them with modern killing weapons and it led to just an absolute slaughter. And that's a bit of what you're seeing right now in the NFL. The weaponry, the offensive power in football right now has far outstripped the defense. I mean, you combine it with rule changes, offensive theory, and all of a sudden, again, you have a game a decade removed from 2011 that looks completely different from the game that it once was. And yet, you know what remains the same? Tom Brady and Drew Brees. And so they deserve a ton of credit. When you look at this Sunday's game, there's an interesting statistical quirk that I found that I don't know means anything, but I think it's worth mentioning nonetheless. Currently, right now, the Saints are 13-4. The Bucs are 12-5. So combined, the two teams have 25 wins. Despite this, they have a combined 3 wins over teams with winning records. The Bucs beat the Packers, and of course, the Saints beat the Bucs twice. In terms of who they lost to, every team the Bucs lost to were 500 or above, so you can't like that as a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan, right? You beat all the bad teams, but you lost all the good teams you faced, save for the Packers. But the Saints, their losses were a mixed bag as well. They lost to a couple good teams, but then the Chiefs and the Packers, but then they lost to a couple bad teams as well. And so I don't necessarily like that either, because it shows that you can trip up and fall. Now, all of this is a bit of a statistical anomaly, because did y'all realize this? Look at the NFL standings real quick. How many NFC winning record teams were there? I believe it's 3 off the top of my head, but I don't want to misspeak. You had the Packers. Okay, so in the NFC, you had the Seahawks. Okay, there's 5. Okay, so 5 winning record teams. It looks like the Saints and the just because how the schedule calendar, the Saints and the Bucs did not have an opportunity to meet up with much of them. So we're going to see. We're going to see how this thing plays out. Is this stat indicative of anything? Are both of these teams good at beating the bad teams, but not good enough to hang with the big dogs? We'll know more after this weekend. I'll leave you with this, a little positive food for thought. If you wanted to spin zone it, you wanted to feel good about it, you could think of the Saints when it's all said and done because of the 2 wins over the Bears, the 2 wins over the Bucs. The Saints are 4-2 against playoff teams, whereas the Tampa Bay Buccaneers would be 1-5. Maybe that makes you feel a bit better. I don't know. You know what makes me feel good? You already whooped that ass twice, and you're going to whoop that ass a 3rd time. You are the big brother in this scenario. Tom or no Tom. The Saints' defense is better top to bottom. I think that offensively, it's a wash. And if Will Lutz can get straight, I think you have the advantage there as well. So we'll continue to preview the matchup. But, I mean, just appreciate the legendary, unprecedented nature of watching these two stalwart, ultimately adaptable generals go head-to-head on Sunday. I cannot wait. I don't know when the last time that I've been this excited for an NFL football game was. Who dat? All right, when we get back, we'll take a look at the rest of the NFL playoffs as the quarterfinals are here, boys. 32 teams start out, only 8 remain. Okay, we're down to the final 25%. Who will reign supreme and move on to the Final Four? We'll talk about it next here on OTBOT. Hey, I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, go ahead and like and subscribe below. You want more great Saints content? We got it all here on Off the Bench Overtime. Check out these other videos, share with your friends, and let's grow the Who Dat Nation together. Who Dat?